From a plan to build education, to the possible destruction of learning, there is a story about mass reform, shrouded in hidden information, and details that were never meant to be made public. School testing has been shrouded in mystery and clouded in misjudgment. But to understand any of this, we'll need to begin with a simple question. What is the best way to see if someone knows something? Well, surprisingly enough, humans have developed the most efficient method of communication, speech. It's been developing for thousands of years, so that must be the right answer. If I ask my friend what color is the sky, it's pretty easy to just say blue. Even more complex questions like what's the first 5 digits of the Euler's number can be answered orally. This ease of use was why oral testing was the first form of test taking in American schools. Being so effective, it makes sense. However, oral testing took hours for one large classroom, let alone a whole school. This method was so inefficient, it didn't matter how effective it was. Oral testing just took too long. It was the 17th century, the big 1800s, and America was growing substantially. America's population drastically multiplied by the mid-1800s, marking the start of the word hundreds of thousands following the census count. But you see, this count doesn't just include Americans. With great education and good jobs, America was a visionary, leading to the future of the rich man. Many immigrants from across the globe set off to America for better chances at a good life. And in 1850, the number of European immigrants in America was over 20 times the number of non-immigrants. Schools had a problem. There were way too many students in their classrooms, and teachers couldn't test all of them orally. That would take way too much time and way too many resources that they didn't have. Teachers needed a way to accessibly test all students, including the new immigrant students. To unite the world, teachers thought, we need to make testing more accessible. This leads us to Horace Mann, an educational pioneer of the 1800s. Mann was hired on the Massachusetts Educational Board in 1837, and in that time worked with schools across the globe to solve this issue and more. In 1843, he visited many European and Persian schools to introduce new styles of learning. However, he noticed a big problem with education in America. Testing wasn't measuring growth. Instead, it was encouraging students to show off and flaunt. In 1845, Mann proposed to the Boston Public School Committee that the standard be changed to written tests. You see, teachers needed a way to measure growth accurately. Mann argued that paper was cheap, simple to print, and easy to transport, and these new tests could be made in bulk. The Boston Public School Committee leaned into his idea and used paper testing for the first time that year. The results of this test were astounding. Not only is paper testing cheap and efficient, but Mann noticed something jarring about the students. These kids in Boston did not test well at all. These tests were actually quite balanced, being framed around tests that students would take in their classrooms. And even though it was a first attempt, Mann didn't see it as an issue with the tests themselves. He realized that the teachers in the classrooms never actually used the results of the tests. Like I said, the tests were there to flaunt knowledge, not actually improve education. Nevertheless, written testing associations would sprout throughout the country, with the most prominent being the New York Regents exams in 1965. So, how did the public take it? Well, many supporters, mostly teachers and richer parents, praised its ability to test students quickly and its availability to all students. But just because these new tests were available to all students doesn't mean the tests were able to be read by all students. These tests were in traditional English, a language most Americans could read, but was completely illegible to some immigrants. This is an example of Americanization, an attempt to fit immigrants into an American standard. Teachers were forcing non-English speakers to read and understand English just so they could take the tests. Frenchman Alexis de Tocqueville argues, in proportion to the population, there are so few ignorant and at the same time so few learned individuals. Primary instruction is within the reach of everybody. Superior instruction is scarcely obtained by any. The school districts kept pursuing this new form of education for another reason: efficiency. With students enrolling at a rapid rate, teachers needed to focus on an efficient testing method, not necessarily effective. Written testing became much easier to test in bulk, which was a requirement with the rising populations. Each written test could take anywhere from a few seconds to a few minutes to grade. This compared to the 15 to 20 minutes it takes to grade an oral report, and the difference is wide. Similarly, biases were showing up between teacher and student relationships when it came to oral testing, which isn't as possible with this new testing method. However, this new system wasn't perfect. Because standardized testing was still so new, teachers weren't aware how to implement it. Many teachers were unable to use the new test results or didn't know what to do with the students if they failed. Despite this issue, as well as the aforementioned problems with Americanization, written testing persisted.
There's a certain unwillingness of people in the school system, certain school systems, to change. It's hard, I know that. And yet the bill we passed says you gotta change.
That was until the format changed in 2001, when President George W. Bush introduced the No Child Left Behind Act. No Child Left Behind was seen as a goal for America. At the end of his term, President Bush wanted all schools across America to reach 100% proficiency or mastery in all subjects. He wanted to achieve national excellence. His act forced schools to provide more work, more classroom time, and more tests for students. School days were lengthened past the 6 hours the country sat at, with most recreational time for students decreasing. Recess and lunch times were briefed to an average of 20 minutes, 1/3 of the average time 50 years ago. The biggest change came to testing. Instead of taking 1 or 2 tests a year to measure growth, year-round assessments were formed to track growth, with most students taking 4 government-mandated tests in a year. This was the birth of automated standardized testing. Many students just fell out, parents claiming that their kids were still underachieving. Weaker students couldn't achieve these higher goals, while advanced children were slipping due to burnout or teachers holding them back to help other students catch up. Dropout rates fluctuated, with smaller demographics like Hispanic and Native students dropping out by 20% more than the average student. Despite this, the benefits of standardized testing were inflated. School districts focused on small statistical increases instead of focusing on the overall statistic and realizing that nothing was changing. News headlines were focusing on these averages and didn't pay attention to the struggling students. The entire world was tricked by the media. No Child Left Behind was built based on old principles, and written testing had many issues since the start. While it is true that racial discrimination from testing has died down, small percentages of our population still struggle with Americanization. Students' proficiencies originally rose because of No Child Left Behind, but settled back down to the middling 90th percentile overall, not the goal of President Bush. Now, what's the mistake they made? Think back to the beginning of this video, to the question I asked. What's the best way to see if someone knows something? Now, it wasn't just a simple segue, although it was pretty useful. It was meant to illustrate the point of testing as a whole. Testing is meant to track growth, not teach. The mainstay problem of No Child Left Behind isn't even helping students learn, it's only tracking their growth. So, standardized testing is hurting students' learning without providing resources to the future growth of education. Well, what's the solution? Where do we go from here? Well, luckily, there are a few plans already being worked on. Kimberly O'Malley, Senior Vice President of the School of Research for Pearson Education, is broadcasting blind testing, a method of testing by observing students instead of directly testing them. We can monitor student learning day to day in a digital scenario. Ultimately, if we're successful, the need for and the activity of stopping and testing will go away in many cases. But they're not the only ones pushing for change. Various school districts across the nation, including some in Maryland, have been switching back to one-on-one interviews. These school districts, while not being able to feasibly create a strategy that works in a larger setting, are still pushing for this change and are showing what's possible if you just dig a little deeper. Now, it's my turn. So, the plan is simple. I'll just set up a meeting with the Board of Trustees. Um, for those that don't know, the Board of Trustees is a group of people in a school district, in this case, Clark County, um, that communicates with both the public and higher ups in the school district. They're essentially the best way to communicate with the school district. Um, so by starting communication with them, I can eventually branch off into different parts of the school district and make my way to the top. So you may be wondering, what's my plan to what's my proposal? What am I proposing to them? And the thing is, I don't have one. See, the thing with proposing something to a school district like this, it's very difficult to propose anything at all, and that's because school districts are very fragile. That's the entire reason why No Child Left Behind made such a mess. Um, in order to in order to create a solution, I need to work with the board of trustees, which means getting communication first. Communication is key. So I emailed Clark County School District's Board of Trustees asking to set up a meeting. After a few hours, they responded, and their message was clear. I need to talk to my school's principal first, so I'll have a staff member to back me up. That makes sense. A one man army isn't going to make a dent in the district's thick regulations. I'll just email my principal. She'll get back to me in about a day, and I'll continue with my project.
So it's about 5 in the morning right now, and I just checked my email. I sent an email to my principal about a month ago, and she did respond. But she just responded to check if I was still doing the project and not actually set up a meeting time. And I did respond back. I did email back, but it's been another week and she hasn't sent anything. That's bad. I am not sure if I can talk to the Board of Trustees now because I didn't get a response back. I don't have anyone in the school to back me up on this. I have no help from anyone in the district, so we're in a pretty bad spot, but I'll try and figure something out.
I emailed the board of trustees after this, but without support from my school, they wouldn't let me go forward. So I remember I was in class and I I saw that she hadn't emailed, and it was the project was at a point where I needed to start working on this video, this deliverable, and I had I had nothing because I didn't get a response, and I was just sitting there. I can't finish the project. I can't finish any of this until I get a response back. And since the board of trustees kind of closed off communication until I was able to talk to my principal, it made things really rough, and it actually made a lot more things worse, because I was talking with one of my friends and they said that the principal got back to them immediately over a silly conversation. So that just kind of really messed things up. Because of this, I wasn't able to really do anything. I I mean, I made this video project to kind of showcase the issues within education, but I wasn't able to do anything with it, you know? So, just like the history of standardized testing, this project didn't go so well. Um, I I got time and I got effort, but I didn't get help. And without the help from my principal, um, or any other admin at my school, the project just ended up failing. Now, I'm personally not upset at this failure. This failure did come as a bit of surprise, mainly because I foresaw that if I were to fail, if I were to mess up, it would have been my fault. And I was a little surprised that I wasn't able to complete this project, not because of my own failures, but because of a communication issue. Um, but I'm not all that upset. I was able to learn a lot about the education process and how standardized testing came to be, and because of that, I was able to share it. That's the biggest thing about the internet, is that sharing it just kind of sparks a lot of chain reactions. As far as actually creating a solution, I'm afraid this is where my journey ends.